loud.
Sounds Gucci.
Oh God, this hair is leaving much to be desired. Okay. Hello, friends. It is Caitlin and Shanika with Get Checkered. Get Checkered is part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown and community supported. Oh my gosh, we totally missed you last week. Our lives are a little crazy right now. Okay. So you will get an extra episode one of these upcoming weeks with Caitlin and I chatting about Formula One stuff, but we haven't seen each other or talked to each other in a few weeks. So Caitlin, how's you been?
Yeah, no, it actually has been a few weeks. Yeah. Shanika was in Montreal, and we'll definitely get into that last week. And then I spent this last weekend, I was in Canmore for a bachelorette. So that was a lot of fun. I've known Katie since grade 1, and now she's getting married in December, and it's like, oh. And she's like a big planner, so she didn't plan this bachelorette. It was very hard for her to like let go of the planning aspect, but her sister's like, stop it, Katie. And it was hilarious. It turned out really well. The theme was Disney, so we're wearing our little like mini ears everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty chill actually, aside from like the Friday night was like debaucherous, not as much as it could have been, but like enough. And then all Saturday, like the place we were at had a pool, so we were at the pool all day. And then kind of a chiller Saturday night. People weren't really feeling it, which fair. But had a nice dinner, had some drinks, played some more Disney games, and then left this morning, drove back out straight to the airport, watched the race in the airport lounge, and then here we are. Yeah, the last week was insane at school, Shanika. It was bad. I started taking like, so my roommate had some extra like Adderall or whatever, a version of that. Yeah. I was taking like every day to finish 2 papers because I like one was 25 to 35 pages long, the other was only 6. So I didn't start that to like day of. And I'm trying to write a 25-page report in a week. I'm like, oh no.
And the thing is, like, you had to get it done because you like don't really have an option. Plus, you have a bachelorette party on the weekend.
So I went to sleep at like 3 a.m. for a week.
That sucks.
So it's very like, I slept a lot at the bachelorette. Yeah, it's like freedom. It's nice. Insane. But yeah, that was me past week and a bit. How about you? Tell me about Montreal.
Yeah, I think like very similar vein. So I think the last time we spoke to everyone, we were in obviously Vancouver, saw Caitlin. We had way too much fun. I think is like the way to say it. We were dead when we recorded the episode because all we did was drink and stay up till like 4 and then wake up at 9 and like do it all over again. But came back to home to Calgary, got sick like immediately. So I had all these like things I was supposed to do in the office. Couldn't go in for the full week. And that's Stampede time, if you don't know. So I was like, holy shit, I'm sick for Stampede. Caitlin flew out that weekend though for Stampede. So I was able to see her for one of the nights. I went to one of the tents. Don't worry, I was like feeling much better. Sober. I didn't have COVID. I had a sinus infection. But and then was just trying to like chill because I knew that following Tuesday I was going to be back on a plane to Montreal. So went to Montreal for Startup Fest. And if anyone knows what it's about, it's basically like this international festival for startups. People can win some money. It's basically, they call it like the summer camp for the startup tech industry. And I would totally agree. It was so fun, but it was basically the same thing all over again, where we were working pretty much all day and then going out till 3 or 4. Or like,
who are we, Shanika?
Going out till 3, but then coming home and like chit-chatting with my coworkers because we all stayed in a giant Airbnb until like 5, and then waking up and doing it the next day. So it was exhausting, but so cool. Like if anyone has the opportunity, if you're interested in startups or anything like that, I would highly recommend going to Startup Fest. It is quite expensive, I will say, but Montreal is beautiful. The food scene's great. And just like the festival itself is super, super cool. So really happy about that. It was like really great. But then I came back home and pretty much like 12 hours later, jumped in a car with my partner and we drove out to his family place in Wassa in BC. So I've just like not been home and the one time I've been home, I've been sick, which is not great. And because I'm sure I've mentioned it, but my brother's moving to California. So I do want to spend some time with him before he moves. So it's just been absolutely insane. But I highly recommend Startup Fest. There was 3 prizes this year. There was a like Best of the Fest prize, one for Black founders and women in tech, and actually women won all 3. So that was
Boom,
great.
baby. I love
Really
that.
cool startups. Something called O Foods, Magnestar, which is brilliant, by the way, for the Canadians that had to deal with the outage with Rogers. The woman who's building Magnestar is going to basically make it so that doesn't happen. And then there was one more called, oh God, primulation or something. It was something to do with like condensation and water and something like that. So yeah, there was a space startup, something to do with condensation, something to do with food, but it was just like all in all, super cool. Really enjoyed it. But now I'm going to hang out for a few weeks. Just take it easy. Trying to be sober, trying to like take care of myself because I'm still like when I came back from Montreal, I ended up getting sick right away again. Yeah. So I spent most of like the beginning of my trip to BC just like super sick. And then started feeling better, but I'm still not at 100%, which is like absolutely insane. So here we are. This is what happens when Caitlin and I try to be 18. We just end up ill.
Lord, forever. Anyways, that sounds cool though. I'm glad you had fun in Montreal. Your Insta stories were giving me life, Shanika.
Yeah, a little bit too debaucherous. Definitely got in trouble from the powers that be. It was a bit of a slap on the wrist. But like maybe don't show that because of course, you know, the powers that be are seeing like 1 second of something versus like the whole evening. So they can't tell that we were being responsible. But you know, I get it. It happens. Anyways, Caitlin and I are going to talk about the French Grand Prix that I woke up at 7 and actually watched, which is wonderful.
You go.
Right after this ad break. So this episode of Get Checkered is brought to you by the Edmonton Community Foundation. The Edmonton Community Foundation acts as a bridge between donors and charities to create a strong, vibrant community for generations to come. You can start an endowment fund yourself or with a group. Once it reaches $10,000, it can start distributing funds. Vital Signs is an annual checkup conducted by the Edmonton Community Foundation in partnership with the Edmonton Social Planning Council to measure how a community is doing. And this year's focus is on making ends meet in Edmonton. Learn more at ecfoundation.org.
Very cool. Very cool. So I was telling Shanika, I did these track facts as I was on my way back from the airport today. But you know what? I actually learned a lot. So we have ourselves the French GP at the Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Cassaye, VAR. That's the department, I guess is what they call it in France. In France, yes. So VAR is the department within the region of Provence, Alpes, Côte d'Azur. And it's like, oh, damn, okay, is that Provence? Technically not exactly. You guys have probably heard of Provence because it's beautiful. The lavender fields, literally, I would love to go there one day. But Provence is a historic region, I guess. It's all been changed around in France, mostly the same, but I think it incorporates a little bit more now. This Provence, Alpes, Côte d'Azur region is Wikipedia. This is Wikipedia, folks. They say it's commonly known as PACA, PACA.
I don't know.
Good enough.
Like, sure.
Yep, it's the very far southeastern region of your mainland France. It's right along Mediterranean. You know, probably really nice. Marseille's in the region, if you know what that is. So that's what we're talking about. And VAR is this department within the region. It was created at the time of the French Revolution, so that's a fun fact. Saint Tropez is in this department as well. So tourism is huge for this department. I think it was the number one industry from what I saw. And here's kind of where I'm going to just throw in a political thing because it was very recent. Technically in this region, Marine Le Pen edged out Emmanuel Macron. It was very close, like 50.5 to 49.5. Oh, for the region of PACA. And then in VAR, she won around 55% of the votage. And we just want to say, like, personally, not even just personally, like Marine Le Pen, what's her name? Le Pen. Not great.
Not a good person.
So
she's kind of like not
she's
great.
the leader of what's called the National Rally Party, and they are the far right party in France. So knowing that, like,
Lord,
I almost think of it as like everyone kind of like shits on Alberta for being the blue province, like super conservative. Well, I feel like it's not just the Packer region that's blue, but like they are blue region. So it's not great. Because this National Rally Party is very strong French nationalism, protectionism, and strong anti-immigration. So I don't know. That's not great though.
Okay.
So that's the region with the very most recent 2022 provincial election. Nice. Okay, moving on. This village is called Le Cassaye. Really not much from Wikipedia on it at all, literally, except that the circuit is here. It's northwest of the major city in Navarre called Toulon. It's surrounded by vineyards, and this village is situated on a cliff. It's about 4,000 people there, so it's not big. I'm always picturing like small village, like with Beauty and the Beast kind of thing. Anyways, so yes, they have this Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Cassaye. It first opened in 1970. The first GP held there was 1971. So as you can tell, it's a very colorful track. There's lots of squiggly blue and reds everywhere. But did you know they actually mean something? So of course they would have to, but like no one tells us. So blue zone is your runoff areas. It's a mixture of asphalt and tungsten used instead of gravel traps that we will normally see at the other tracks. And then like the red zone, quote unquote, is your deeper runoff areas. They're a bit more abrasive and you get more tire wear if you go into those than you would elsewhere, but it minimizes your distance. It's an 8-kilometer track, so you have 53 laps of it, 2 DRS zones, and I'll go into this. So we discussed it last year sometime about the sustainable tracks and everything. So this track has a 3-star FIA environmental accreditation. So along with the Barcelona Catalunya circuit, they're tied for second most sustainable circuit in the world. This is behind the Mugello circuit in Florence, Italy, which means obviously I have to go back to Florence and see it. Duh.
When was the last time, like, have we seen a race in Florence?
We haven't. I think they have one 2020.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Tuscany GP. Anyways, so yeah. You look at like the rankings of these three and like it was like pretty good. Everything else was shit. So this track is actually doing really good. Some of the things they do for sustainability include bee health monitoring. So I know Shaq and I, when we did the episode, it was like save the bees.
Yeah.
I think it was this track. They do measurements for sound emissions, and they actually built an anti-noise mound to stop the noise traveling out into the environment. Photovoltaic cells covering the car park, about 20,000 meters squared, to produce about 3,484 megawatt hours, which is quote unquote from Wikipedia, not from Wikipedia, from another website, quote unquote annual energy consumption of 2,968 people, excluding heating, which I don't think you need heating in this region.
Okay.
They've reduced water consumption. They have electric and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles for your technical teams on the circuit. They have electric vehicle charging terminals. It is the first hydrogen production and distribution station in the VAR region. They use biofuel for their safety vehicles and more. So very cool. Lots of stuff literally I learned this past semester in school. Yeah, no, that's really good to see. I hope more circuits follow in suit, and they have to continue doing more and more. So we'll keep on top of that. And then just a bit of facts on your French GP. So a lot of historic stuff. The first Grand Prix was your French GP. That was on June 26, 1906. It was won by a Hungarian guy. Cool, because we got a Hungary next. That's my Italian for that. The French GP has been hosted at 16 different venues over the years. It was something like 6 or 7 officially when it's been the World Championships, but 16 in total. So the track before this one, Paul Ricard, that was like a staple for 17 years. So a lot of our listeners probably have heard of it. It's your Magny course. And that was the other recent track, hosted for 17 years.
Wow.
So highlights include Prost's final of his 6 wins on home soil back in 1993. Michael Schumacher secured the 2002 championship after only 11 races here. I guess not a lot of people liked it because of location. It was more central, it wasn't on the coast. And so back in 2008, that was the last French GP for 10 years. And it was at that circuit. So why did we have a big break from 2008 to 2018? That was mostly due to financial problems.
Usual, typical thing at these tracks.
And then turns out, what's his name? Your least favorite person, Bernie Ecclestone, bought the circuit. He bought Le Cassaye. Paul Ricard. He bought it in 1999, and then he sold it, I guess, after he divorced from his second wife. Anyways, so that's the tea. So at Paul Ricard, who has the most wins? It's Michael Schumacher at 8, and Ferrari with 17 for constructors. And then didn't do much on tire facts, except that they're using like the medium range, which was C2, C3, C4 for your 6. But we know tire degradation was an issue because it was so hot this weekend. And like I sent something to Shanika and Courtney during the week being like, the tires were like hot. It was hot this week leading up. And it's like, so how bad is this going to be for the tires? And they're like, we'll see.
Yeah, and that was something, I guess, going into this race that all of the teams had to be mindful of, is that on at least when the race finished, the track was 55 degrees Celsius, and then off track it was like still 30 something. So absolutely insane.
That's warm. Yeah.
I forgot to put down notes for qualifying, but here's some stuff from all the qualifying. I didn't watch any of it. Actually, Adam had it playing on the background, and I was like, I'm going to sleep. So in Q1, unsurprisingly, Charles Leclerc had early pace, so kind of set the standard, and then Max went and he came in second, and honestly was only like 100th off what Charles had set. So really showing that the weekend was going to go to the Red Bull or Ferraris, but the Ferrari had the pace. Sainz was in third. He was half a second off the pace and just ahead of Sergio Perez. So unfortunately, the folks that didn't make it out of Q1, Pierre Gasly. I think when the summer break hits, we need to do a full episode on just Pierre Gasly and how I just feel bad for him. Lance Stroll, they both set the same times, which kind of sucks for them. Zhou Guan Yu, Mick Schumacher, who lost a top 10 lap time because he exceeded track limits at the apex of turn 3. So that kind of sucks. And Nicholas Latifi. In Q2, guess who does it again? It's Charles Leclerc, setting pace, then followed by the Red Bulls. But that's when Carlos Sainz came out of nowhere and knocked everyone out of the park, I guess, and what everyone was guessing by almost a second. So he ended up finally on top of it, which was very exciting. Unfortunately, Charles ran again, and then he came in second, but only 100th off his teammate. So really setting the bar up for a Ferrari 1-2. That's what we're all thinking. It's going to be a Ferrari 1-2. Unfortunately, that meant that Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas, Sebastian Vettel, and Alex Albon were knocked out. Valtteri, I don't know what's going on with him. This is he normally is someone that will always show up in Q3, and for the last few races, he hasn't been able to make it out of Q2. So not sure what's going on there. We know he's happier. We saw him walking around with the circuit Paul Ricard. Did you see that? Ricard bucket hat? Like, he seemed to be happy and enjoying his time at the track, but in terms of qualifying, it's not where he used to be.
Maybe the summer break will help reset him.
Hopefully. Then Q3, Carlos Sainz gave Charles a good old tow, which was great. And then Max came in second and Perez in third. Again, when they went again, Carlos gave another tow and Max couldn't beat it. So what ended up happening was they knew that there were some grid penalties coming, especially for Carlos. So just having him go and kind of play the assist to the team was the most important thing. And he really did play the team game. Charles Leclerc ended up on pole in P2. We had Max, followed by Sergio. I think the surprise for all of us is just seeing Mercedes still in that P4. They say they have the third best car, and it's true. They just have the third best car. The bigger surprise for me, though, was Lando Norris in P5. He split the Mercedes with George in P6, Fernando Alonso in P7, Yuki Tsunoda in P8. A freaking amazing showing by him, which unfortunately didn't bode well for him come race day. And then, of course, like we mentioned, Carlos was getting the penalty. So in the initial grid that came out as soon as the race was over, as soon as qualifying was over, he was in P9 and P10. Obviously, that shifted when the race started. Carlos started from the back of the grid. But yeah, it was basically everything that we saw was saying this is Ferrari's thing. This is Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz's race. And come race day, that was not what happened.
Well, we also should say, did Magnussen take a grid penalty too?
Yes, I believe he did too. I can't remember what it was for though. Here we go. Yes, power unit changes. So they started 19th and 20th.
Yep. Mine too, guys. Two of my favorites. Back row. It was
I will say, like, my fantasy team got demolished.
Shanika, I didn't even put a complete team in. I got thrashed. I'm not looking at my score.
When the value of my team went down.
My team were Magnussen, someone else, and like, oh, it was just so bad.
Yeah, the value of my fantasy team went down by 5 million. Somehow still ended up in 7th because everyone's teams went down because of
that's good
what happened. But
hold on. While we're on this topic, you want to just see my face when I realize for the first time I haven't opened this the whole day.
Let's see. I don't even know where you are. I didn't even look because I was so sad.
Yeah, that's good. I don't think we want to know.
5 million. I can't 5 million. Is your team?
I don't know how I went up in value. But I think I went down in I'm 22nd now.
Oh.
But I went up in value.
That's good. Having money is important because now I'm below $100 million, which is
banned on that one. That hurts.
Yeah, it's not good. For those who don't know, we have a grid rival team.
You have 95 million and you're in 7th.
I'm in $95 million and somehow in 7th.
And we started with 110.
I know. I have no money. Still somehow holding on to things as the teams get more and more expensive. That's not good.
Interesting.
But anyways, we can talk about our winners and losers from race day. But Caitlin got an ad.
Yep, quick ad break before we get into race day. So with Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout out to Book Women. So Book Women is a podcast about editing, publishing, and writing Indigenous stories. 3 Métis librarians representing nations from across the homeland aim to inspire Indigenous peoples to share their stories in whatever form that they enjoy. Guests include Indigenous storytellers from diverse mediums like podcasting, burlesque, books, comics, social media, films, music, and everything in between. You can listen and find out more at bookwomenpodcast.ca. Sounds fun?
Awesome. Okay, so I jotted down some winners and losers, but I'm curious to get your perspective. Who do you want to start with, the winners or the losers?
Let's do winners because we're going to have a lot to talk about for losers.
Yeah. So who's one of your winners?
The biggest winner, Mercedes, and you have it noted down here by far. First double podium of the season.
Whoa! So happy to see freaking Lewis Hamilton and George Russell just do well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this speaks to what we've talked about a ton of, which is just the reliability of their cars. Like they may have a shit box, like they might be driving a tractor out there, but it's very reliable.
But they got a tractor ending up on P2 and P3. Show. It works.
Oh my gosh. Lewis had such an incredible start. Like
he did.
Really,
he blasted off
yeah.
He passed Sergio right away, right?
Yeah, right at the start was just like elbows out, got an incredible start. And then we just kind of had to deal with what we've seen all season, which is the boys being able to hold on enough, but just not have enough pace to be competitive. I think what was surprising to me though is it didn't look like Perez was giving like any sort of pressure to Lewis at all when
It
he
didn't
was.
seem like and maybe we'll get into it with Red Bull
Yeah.
more, but like it didn't seem like the Sergio we know, especially
Yeah.
even with like George holding Sergio off at the end of the race. It's like Sergio could normally blast past.
Yeah, the straight line speed of the Red Bull. Like that's all we see. Every single time there's a straight, you see the Red Bull just
I know.
going for it. So yeah, I don't know. I thought George at that freaking virtual safety car restart was amazing. He and we got more information about what happened, but apparently they were told that like the virtual safety car needed to reset or something, like something needed to reset. So they thought it was going to end at a different turn than it did. So that's kind of what caught Sergio Perez sort of on the sleeping at the wheel, and where George pounced and got the position. But yeah, P2, P3. I don't think Toto Wolff went into this weekend thinking he would see that.
I don't think so either. Exciting though. So that was good to see. Yeah, Mercedes definitely had the biggest W for the weekend, I think. You have Max on here. I'll agree with that. And can I just say it was like a weird comment I heard from Christian at the end of the race. He's like, yeah, you did good for it was okay, pretty much. And I was like, he won.
Like, what else do you want him to do?
What do you want? He didn't get fastest lap. I think that went to Carlos, but still, it's like it's not a mega weekend.
Oh, us and our favorite term mega that they always use so much of.
I just don't understand that.
Lewis did say mega in a post-race interview. He's like, it was a mega weekend.
It's
like,
yeah, no, Max, it was like a flawless race pretty much for him. So
that's exactly it. Like he gets to keep extending his lead. I think obviously
he's up by 63 points on Charles now.
It's so insane because
like,
obviously
one hand on the trophy already.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because at this point it's like, okay, obviously we'll talk about the losers and all that kind of stuff, but for Max, he had like a very lonely race after, you know, what happened to Charles happened to him, but because Lewis couldn't apply pressure, their car is just not fast enough. You also have the issues with the tire degradation anyway, so even if Lewis wanted to try and catch him, like it's not worth it. They're never going to be in a P2 position right now, so just hold on to that. He just kind of like drove and didn't fly. Nothing remarkable, nothing like, I don't know. He pitted before Charles, which I thought was the good call because it would have given him track position, but then that kind of went out the window when Charles
actually, people probably already know what happened.
Had the shitty thing happen to him.
The unfortunate event.
Okay. Any other winners? I put down Alpine, but I don't know.
You know what? I'll agree with that because I was hearing a lot of stuff about Alpine versus McLaren, and now Alpine's past McLaren in constructors for fourth because they went in even.
Yeah.
And at one point you saw it was like a sandwich with like Alonso and then the two McLarens and then Ocon kind of closing up that sandwich, and it was like, so they would still end up even on points at the end of this race, but they didn't. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. Oh, Shanika got it noted down because she is on top of things. Like Alonso finishes in 6th, Ocon in 7th, beating out Norris in 7th and Ricardo in 9th. So their main competitor, and they were able to get more points than them. So yeah, that's a W. It's not maybe as big of a W as Mercedes, but it's a W.
Yeah, and I honestly think like watching Fernando race is so fun because he's the more experienced driver, yes, but
something ridiculous with the Lando behind him. He's like, good, let him wear his tires out.
Yeah, no, like his team bopped on the radio. They were like, okay, this is his pace, and he was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like just have him wear his tires out, which like worked. He played the game right, and you can see that the expertise like that just comes with him being older and experienced is just impressive. It's so impressive, and he keeps honestly outperforming Esteban Ocon. Like,
yeah, I guess this is the first race Esteban got points in the French GP.
Okay, so good for him. We won't shit on him.
That's good for him. Yeah, but still not meeting Alonso, who's your senior.
Yeah, and just like elbows out, just always trying to fight people. Like I enjoy watching him race. I think it's
But
good.
it's a good race for Alpine to do that because Alpine is the French GP. So.
Yeah, and I also think what's wild is like a year ago, the conversation would have been, is Alpine competing? Like, where's Alpine was AlphaTauri?
Oh yeah, wasn't it was versus
Yeah,
Alfa Romeo. It was like all three of the A's together, and it was too much to keep.
yeah. And now like
They're in third,
Alpine has made so
fourth.
much
Now,
progress,
yeah,
and AlphaTauri is like really dropped down in terms of like, I don't know what's going on with that. Anyways, opinions.
I saw Pierre Gasly's parents. They were super excited with one of his good moves. His mom looked cute, Shanika.
I know his parents were there. I think Yuki's parents also came out to the French GP. So I was seeing photos of them all over Twitter, and I was like, oh, these sweet angels. They
Very
all
cute.
look out here supporting their kids. It's so cute. Do you have any other winners that you can think of?
Like Magnussen had a really good start. Should we say? I think Carlos maybe is a middle ground because he made up a lot of ground starting
Yeah,
from
he did.
20th, 19th to 5th. So that's very good. And he had phenomenal pace. He had phenomenal racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think it was like the Mercedes team and their strategy. That was the L versus his driving's a win.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. Speaking of, oh, I actually wanted to say something that was like a winner, I think, was all the drivers that stopped by the F1 TV little thing that they have set up. Nick DeVries was the co-host. But they were giving away popsicles and freezies.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, and all of them were like very excited about it. But what I thought was funny is Lando was like, oh, can I get the Ferrari red, because I need some of their speed. And then when Carlos came up afterwards, like they hadn't seen each other or anything like that, he was like, oh, can I have the orange? So Lando ended up getting the Ferrari red, which I think was like a strawberry or whatever. And Carlos ended up getting an orange, which is McLaren, and Carlando just continuing to be connected and all the time. So I thought it was really fun. It was really cute. If you want to watch it, I'll link it in the podcast description. It's just on YouTube, but they just were so excited about freezies. Even Lewis could only answer one question and was like, are those vegan? And like walked off. It was super sweet. Losers.
I want to save the big one for last. That's a lot of discussion.
Yeah, let's maybe start from the bottom of the list. I'm gonna say Yuki. Fuck me, man. I felt so bad for him after qualifying freaking 8th.
Yeah,
he got bumped by Esteban, and this is like one of those things where it just like sometimes doesn't feel fair, because he got bumped by Esteban. Yes, Esteban ended up getting a 5-second penalty, but even by that bump, Yuki ended up at the back of the grid. Like he could not make up pace, and he didn't even finish the race. Like I think with a couple laps left, they ended up retiring the car. And that's where I'm like, oh, it just is so like some guy can just do something and then you're out completely. And they get a 5-second penalty, but Esteban still finished in the points.
I know. Well, it's 1 out of 22 races.
And it's racing, but still, I'm like,
yeah, I know.
So shit.
Just be Max and be out in the front. Easy answer.
The AlphaTauri team, we need to send them an email. Just make sure everyone's out front. You won't have to have these
problems. And you won't have this issue.
You won't have these issues. My God. Well, who else were your losers before we talk about the big one?
Okay. I agree with this one on Checo. Unfortunately, it was not a great weekend for him. He didn't seem to be as competitive as he normally is.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on, because he's been really putting the fight to Max. Like we've seen it. It's been really interesting and fun to see like that this team is having to make tough decisions, but he didn't have pace. Like we talked about the George situation. He, like I mentioned in the post-race interview, he said he didn't know what was going on with the safety car. But yeah, it just like, it didn't seem to click for him this weekend, which happens. But I think what sucks for him is that he was in a podium position and George really snapped that away, and he could not. I think the tires were dead at that point. He even said it was really hard to pass the Mercedes. He was like, it was really, really difficult, which I'm like, how? But I think maybe it's the dirty air plus how hot it is. Like, I don't know. But yeah, If you're watching the YouTube version, Caitlin's face right now, I don't know what is going on.
Laura's getting into shit with the dog. It does not sound good.
Oh, Caitlin's cat is fighting her roommate's dog potentially.
Last time they got into a predicament, Clover clawed. Not bad, but like,
No.
you think the dog wouldn't fight again after having that?
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any other losers?
Danny Rick. Sorry again.
Oh, really?
And like, because I was reading articles afterwards too, and it's like, what would you rank this one? And he's like, minus 46 out of 10. I'm like, really weird number. That might be an inside joke. I don't get it though, but he said it was a really bad race. So, and honestly, he wasn't remarkable again.
No, he I believe started in P9 and finished in P9.
So like not a big L, but if that's how he's feeling about his own race, I'm not going to say you had a good race.
Okay, look at that. I also watched an interview with him and he was like, yeah, it was I'm like, okay.
I do side tangent. So because I follow like Mark McMorris and I don't even follow Danny Rick, but I get a lot of Scotty James on my TikTok. Okay. He's the Australian snowboarder. And so he's actually like pretty close with, he's very close to Danny Rick. He's in the Instagram post,
okay.
Like the permanent post.
In the feed. Whew.
He's like Mark McMorris posted a video with him. And I'm like, damn, if you could like Scotty get Mark and Danny Rick in one video and I will pass away. Like my life will be made. I came this close to posting that on a public social media, and I'm like,
oh, no, yeah, pull it back.
That'd be something.
Yeah, it would be something. Oh my God.
Anyways, yeah, that's my side tangent on Danny Rick. Lando had a good-ish weekend. I mean, qualifying fifth.
Not bad. It's fine.
Yeah.
I also got, I don't know if you were watching the TSN one or the F1 TV one, but Danny Rick is a spokesperson for Heineken, but specifically like their zero alcohol one or whatever. I saw his Heineken ad like 40 times during the race. It was, really? I get it. Like I get it, but I'm like, why? Why are you showing this so many times? Like Jesus freaking Christ. So that was annoying. I didn't like that. Didn't enjoy that.
Interesting. Okay, let's get on the big one. That's the big story.
So our biggest loser, I feel like if we had a producer, they could put in a sound right now.
I don't know, but it's the same. It's just been before.
Ferrari.
Yep. The team. Not just a driver, the team.
The team. Yeah. Fully strategy to like everything through and through. So obviously the big thing is Charles was leading the Grand Prix. Definitely looked like he was securing the dub, and then, to quote him, lost the rear at turn 11 and then went straight into the barriers and couldn't reverse. So he was effectively out of the race. In every post-race interview, he was like, it's my mistake. It's my mistake. It's my mistake. Like, did you listen to the interviews? It was hard to listen to.
It was so
upset.
When like he initially crashed, it seems like he was trying to like, he was saying like something's wrong with the throttle is pretty much the gist of what it was. And then I think he probably rewatched what happened and talked to the team, and it's like that was driver error. When you're in the lead, man, what they say that's happened 3 times this year already now.
Yeah, he's had quite a few mistakes that have cost him points.
I think that's inexperience.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually think so too. It was so tough to see him like, as soon as obviously crashes the car, he's coming to like the main paddock area, and like the amount of cameras in his face, I was like, you guys, he like, did you hear him scream into
the no?
Yeah, I'm like,
no. Yeah,
like maybe just don't shove a camera in his face right now. He needs like at least like 5 minutes to cool down and like figure out what he wants to do or say. But every interview
it was kind of funny, really bad to be laughing at this, but like when he was getting scootered away from the car and his helmet's still on, his helmet makes his head look so big. It's such small body riding like in a dejected pose on a scooter. And I was like, oh no.
No, poor boy. So all the interviews were depressing. He took full responsibility. Mattea also said like he said it was a mistake. Mattea said it was a mistake and that they have full confidence in Charles. But I do think you're right. It's like that inexperience is really coming out, which is like very similar. And before people say like, you can't see this with the other drivers, it freaking happens. Like Max last year, a lot of the accidents that were happening, I know people don't want to hear this, is because of his inexperience. Like he is not driving that way this year against Charles. He has been way cleaner. And even in the way that he did interviews, he's been talking about how he's like, no, I'm going to like bide my time and really see when's the right time to do something versus last year. And it comes just with experience, right? So I don't know, Caitlin, I guess my big question for you is, do you think come December, we'll be looking back on this and thinking that this is a race that cost Charles Leclerc the world title, the world championship?
Perhaps. I do think my prediction is Max will be winning. But I think agreeing with what Mattia was saying is like they have a lot of hope and faith in Charles, and like maybe he's just getting his leading GP's jitters out, like trying to win the world championship kind of jitters for the first time out of the way this year, maybe. More experience next year. To be honest, so we'll see what happens at Hungary, to be honest, because what I'm thinking is like how Hungary finishes is really going to affect like what he does over the summer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then like what he does over the summer will a lot for the second half of the season. So that's my predictions.
Okay, I can work with that. That works for me.
Yeah. But also, can we talk about the Ferrari team in the pit now? To Carlos literally as he's passing Checo.
I have no idea what's going on with their like.
Are they not watching the race?
Yeah, I truly think that they just all had their heads down and no one was watching the race.
Like looking at the data, being like, oh, now is a good time. Like, look at this time differential. And it's like, look up for 2 seconds. Not and you would optimal timing.
Yeah, you would see that he was literally passing someone.
Yep.
Like,
and like, I think I was hearing that Carlos was saying, like, he was on the radio definitely being like, that was not the right call. Like, why did we do this? Yeah. But then I was reading some articles afterwards and he says like, no, I don't question Ferrari strategy. Like they actually do a very good job. So I'm like, the PR is really working with him. They can't quite get him when he's in the car, which makes sense. But like, he's good. He catches himself and he's like questioning stuff that they don't want him to be questioning. And
well, I think like another point of proof of this is when Carlos like did something he wasn't supposed to do and got a 5-second penalty. And we all knew it was 5 seconds. And then on the radio, they told him, oh, it's a stop and go. And he went back and said, it's not a stop and go.
It's just 5 seconds.
It's just a 5-second penalty.
I know. And it goes to show, remember, he's Virgo. He's very analytical. He knows what he's doing.
Oh my God. I just could not believe that they gave him the wrong information. And thank God he caught it and was like, no, that's wrong.
Do you think some of this is like a language barrier? Because they're a very Italian team. Maybe there is just like some people on the team are just not as strong with English, maybe. Honestly.
I mean, potentially, but I think with stuff like that, then you have to figure out how you're going to communicate with your driver because he's in such a position where he has no idea what's happening.
No, exactly. You're feeding the data to him and you should be feeding him the right data. So I don't know. It is a tricky situation. I hope they can figure that out, whatever the root cause is.
Do you think they should have pit him? So the whole argument is that Carlos was on mediums and they were like, he wouldn't have made it to the end if, they were playing it safe. He wouldn't have made it to the end. We wanted to like not risk anything and just get the P5. What do you think?
Oh, it's so tricky.
I have opinions.
Okay. I'll get mine out before I'm influenced by you. But I think like he had phenomenal pace, but they pitted him with 10 laps to go. And with the heat on that track, I think his tires would have been shit at the end. So I think, yes, they should have pitted him.
Okay, interesting. So I'm going to counter that with the caveat of Pierre Gasly does not have the pace of a Ferrari. So the degradation on the tires, I wouldn't say that would be the same. But Pierre was also on mediums and made it to the end. And they swapped around the same time. Completely fine. So I think there could be an argument for like Carlos could have just been fine. I think that the issue is he's also surrounded by way more competitive cars. There's probably a lot more like dirty air. There's like other things you need to factor in, which might have led to that decision.
And the risk is, so if Pierre Gasly doesn't finish because his tires bust up,
nothing, literally.
Yes, exactly. Not much is going to happen because they're not in the mix. But if something like that happens to Carlos, who's in the mix, I think that risk was just
too high
to shoulder.
Too high.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. I think Ferrari needs to fire some people. We've said this though since we started the podcast. But they need to fire some people.
They started so strong. They started the strongest you could have been, a 1-2. And they have
really struggled.
Yeah, since.
They've really struggled, and there's been a lot of strategy calls that have led to like really weird decisions and missing podiums or like losing points.
The strategy definitely, like the strategy team needs to do some reevaluating.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I just don't even understand how you fumble the bag so hard on something like this. And even with Carlos, like with this pace that we talked about earlier on the podcast and qualifying, he could have easily taken pole. Like he was really competitive. So, I mean, you know, coulda, woulda, shoulda, whatever. But it's also like he could have been on the podium. They just figured out their shit a little bit better.
And the thing is, it's like that's their loss, though. So they're doing it to themselves. They're digging their own grave.
Oh Lord, it's like drives me crazy.
So yeah, they're the biggest L by
It's
unfortunate because like you have the hometown heroes for Esteban and Pierre because they're Frenchies, but like they're saying, like Charles is Monteguesi, and that's pretty much French. So they love him.
And they just like a Ferrari can't, they are just fumbling the bag, y'all. That is what Ferrari's doing. Ferrari is fumbling the bag at every turn, and it's like it just doesn't make sense. Anyways, the final results: Max Verstappen with the win, followed by both Mercedes. Seeing Lewis Hamilton and George Russell was so exciting. Sergio Perez missed out by like literally the skin of his teeth. Is that the skin of your teeth?
Skin of his teeth.
Something. It still feels wrong. Anyways, finished in P4. Carlos in P5. Again, that safe bet that they knew he could finish in P5. Fernando Alonso in P6, followed by Lando Norris in P7, Esteban Ocon in P8, Danny Rick in P9. Did you see the little like kerfuffle between Sebastian Vettel and
how literally they almost crashed each other?
Yeah, which I was like,
and did you also hear when Stroll was like on the radio being like, what did he say to his team? It was like, it was sassy. He had a sassy
comment. He told them basically to stop talking to
and I was like, okay. I mean, everyone does that, but you don't hear Stroll often.
Very often, no. But Stroll ended up, winning out ahead of his teammate in P10, so he had last points position. They did almost crash just before the end of the race, which I thought was ridiculous. Pierre Gasly in P12, followed by Alex Albon, Valtteri Bottas, Mick Schumacher, and Guan Yu Zhou. And when I was looking at the times, it was really interesting because, Zhou Guan Yu, his was like +6 laps.
So, because I don't know, he didn't finish the race, did he?
That's what I thought. That's why I was like, I don't know.
Why doesn't it count as a DNF?
I have no idea.
But yeah, like it might have been because it was so close to the end.
Maybe I thought he didn't
for
finish.
The reason it was because people are saying like if it's an engine problem, like Ferrari again adding to their L. If Alfa Romeo has another engine problem, then
exactly. So I don't know why it said like +6, but when I was watching the race, he was DNF'd. So I don't know what shifted or changed. But the other DNFs, obviously Charles, Yuki, Nicholas Latifi, have no idea what happened there. Do you have any idea?
Latifi and K-Mag had a little kerfuffle. That pissed me off because I'm like, leave K-Mag out of it. Latifi, stop.
Oh no. I didn't even see that. I was just like, oh, he's out. That's not great. K-Mag being out, not good, because there goes our fantasy teams right then and there.
Yep.
That sucks.
And he was doing so good. He was moving up too.
Yeah. They were this could have been a good week.
No.
But yeah, that's it. Caitlin, do you have any predictions for next week before we go on summer break?
What am I gonna be today? Optimistic or pessimistic?
You can do both. I think it's fine to have both predictions personally.
Okay, so optimistic, yes. I want to see Sainz and Charles on the podium again. They haven't been up there together for a while.
Okay.
I'd love to see them closed out by a Mercedes. Pessimistic will be probably Red Bulls 1 and 2s. And another more reliability issues for Ferrari. More engine problems. That's what I'm forecasting.
Oh, geez.
Okay, what about you?
Okay, since we're doing both predictions, I'm gonna say optimistically, we have Ferrari in like a 1-2 or 2-3, something like that. Something to like bring the points haul closer for both the constructors and both like the world championships, just something. But I truly think that's only going to happen if there's like a DNF from Red Bull or like something goes like really left with Red Bull. I don't know what it would be, but something would have to go really wrong. And so that's on the optimistic side. And also I would love to see like Lewis Hamilton has not gone a whole season without winning a race. So I really want him to win a race this year. It would be bad to like set the precedent of not winning a race, but I think he can. So maybe Hungary, probably not, but maybe Hungary, who knows? And then so that's like the optimistic thing. I think pessimistically it is Red Bull. Like we're gonna have a Red Bull 1-2 with maybe not even a Ferrari and a P3 because something shitty happens to their either it's a mistake or a really bad strategy call and it's like a random P3. And maybe that's a good thing. You know, maybe it's an Alonso.
Who are you putting in for your wild card podium?
I'm gonna say Alonso.
Okay. I'm putting Vettel because we know he did good last year.
Yeah, I was trying to think of who like did well in Hungary. So was it Esteban Ocon that won it?
Oh, Hungary was when Bottas hit Lando from the back.
And then like took out like 25
cars. That was Hungaroring. I remember this.
So maybe Esteban Ocon.
Bro, yeah, okay.
Maybe doesn't win, but is on that podium. Who knows?
Okay, I like it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll be back here to talk about it anyways.
Oh, it's the long weekend. I'm like,
Oh, is it the long weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I have no semblance of time anymore.
It's going to be rough watching this race next week.
Is it early? I mean, it's hungry.
It's gonna be early.
It looks like 7 a.m.
We'll pass away. It's fine.
You can just watch it later. It's fine.
Watch on the beach. It's going to be lovely this week in Vancouver, and I will be utilizing the beach.
As you should. It's like one of the best things about Vancouver. Well, I think that's all, friends. So you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Get Checkered on everything. You can send us emails at getcheckered@gmail.com. And yeah, is it next week?
Next week, yeah.
Until next week, friends, and maybe beforehand, we owe you an episode. So let's pump that out there. Put it out there in the universe.
We'll do it. Yeah, you'll hear from us.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the meantime,
stay checkered, friends.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.